Hi, this is Dr. Fab Mancini, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for the FCA, the Empower 1/2 Hours Webinar Series. Now, why did we select this half an hour, and why does the FCA even want to put a webinar empowerment series? Well, it's very simple. Most of your feedback has always been is how do we get information to keep us excited, to keep us motivated in between seminars? And one of the things that I recognize is one of the best ways to do it is through a medium in which you have access to it. But you'll notice that these seminars are a little different than what some of the things you have seen out there. These webinars are going to be actually audio and video in which you can access at any time. And most importantly, these seminars are designed to be able to give you content that you can use right away. One of the things that I recognize is many of us really know what to do. We just don't know how to do it. So I'm going to be bringing you some of the best speakers, trainers in the chiropractic profession around the world. These are individuals that are actually making time out of their own busy schedules to come to you and share with you information that can actually take your practice to a whole new level. So all I need from you is just to pay attention, is to listen. Listen with an open mind, listen with an open heart, and most importantly, take a lot of notes. Now, the good news is that you're going to have access to this content at any time. So that means you can download it in your iPhones, in your iPads, in your tablets. You can also make sure that you have it accessible in your personal computers. So you can watch the video and be able to see the faces of these individuals that you're going to be learning from, especially today. So our guest today needs really no introduction. She's one of the world-leading CA trainers and speakers around the world, over 20 years of experience. She actually deals with the biggest practices in the world because she has refined her art to the point that she is in such demand. She's actually helping individuals maintain the success of their practices at the highest level. So what I ask you to do is to really come to us and give us some basic information that is going to actually give you the tools that you need, the resources that you need, the action steps that you need to implement it immediately. So Lori, it's so great to have you in this webinar series.
Thank you, Dr. Fab. I'm glad to be part of it and anxious to share the information that I have to help these practices be the best they can be.
Well, you know, it's so funny because the buzz of the town is I have so many friends of mine that experience you at the Florida Chiropractic Association's National Convention, which is in Orlando, and you were one of the main speakers this year. And they said that you brought the house down. How did you feel about that conference, and what was your recollections when you came back home and told people about it?
The conference was great. To have that many people there and so many people excited about the profession. And I was really, really honored and pleased to be able to teach the CA class. And I taught a class called the Efficient, the Effective, and the Powerful and Profitable Front Desk. And that is such an important part of a practice. That class was full. I think that class had a higher attendance than it had in many years, and I got great feedback from it. And I love teaching that class because it is so important to have that well-trained CA, that person who is going to really take charge of that practice and help with that patient outcome and help that practice be the best it can be. So for me to be able to teach that class and empower the CAs with the attendance and the outcome was amazing.
Well, let me ask you this question, Lori, because one of the things that probably some of our viewers have probably seen you before or heard you before, but we may have some that have not. So why don't you tell us a brief history as to your journey of how you got to this level? And also, please let us know what keeps you so passionate about teaching this content every single day.
I've been in the industry since 1995, and I love the industry. And I actually started out on my own in 1997. And here we are 20 years later, and I'm still teaching it passionately daily. What I love about it is seeing the outcomes that I get, seeing the outcomes for the practice, seeing the outcomes for the patient, but most importantly, empowering the staff and allowing them to love what they do. And I think that the key there is making sure that they have the right training. And you had said in your intro, you know, not just what do you do, but how do you do it? And that's how I love to teach. I teach you what to do. I teach you how to do it, but most importantly, I think I teach you why to do it and how to get the outcomes that we're looking for. And by developing that type of training, I love doing it I engage and have great relationships with the people that I work with and teach, and I really love seeing the outcomes for the practice and the patients.
You know, one of the things that I've been very surprised is that when I meet the CAs that you have trained, they love you. But I have had so many chiropractors tell me how much they love you themselves because you also make sure that the chiropractor understands the value that you're bringing into that practice. What do you think keeps most chiropractors from truly understanding what I've always said for over 25 years, that training a CA is one of the greatest investments that you'll ever make for that practice?
It is the greatest investment, but I also need to make sure that the doctor understands that he can't be absent. He or she cannot be on an island by themselves and expect this to work the way it works. So the reason that you know my clients and see how closely we're engaged, because it's a team. And the team starts with owner, doctor, all clinical and all administrative, all working together, delivering the same message for the same purpose. So we can't divide it and say, I'm just going to work with front desk, you work with clinical. We have to work with everybody together. And that's why you see, and I think one of the best things that I do is I do empower the staff and I do engage the staff. I like to get to know each person on an individual basis. Every practice is different. Some are larger, some are smaller, some are in different demographic areas. And my job is to get to know that philosophy, the practice, and be able to engage and empower not just the staff, but the doctor, and put them all together. I have what I call the triangle of communication. And if you have the provider and your patient care coordinator and front desk all speaking the same language and all making sure the processes are in, the outcome's amazing. And when you have a break in there, it's almost like you lost a relay race, because you have to pass the baton, pass the baton, pass the baton. The one who drops the baton loses. So I'm really, really big, and I invite every doctor and owner, come to my class, and you'd be amazed, Dr. Fab, when you come to my class, you don't just see CAs in there. You see doctors, you see owners, everybody's empowered, and that's where you get the result and the outcome I'm used to getting.
Well, it's so funny because the administrators at the FCA told me that the feedback regarding your presence and your content and your classes at the National was just amazing. So they're bringing you back for the Naples event.
Yes.
The Naples event is, as you know, the FCA Winter Conference, Convention and Expo. And this is going to be November 19th through the 22nd in Naples, Florida. So tell me a little bit about what you're going to be teaching us in those classes, and why should we consider definitely not only coming ourselves as chiropractors, but bringing every single one of our staff members?
What I'm going to be teaching, and I said earlier, the title is Efficient, Effective, and Profitable Front Desk. And I think all three of those, are vitally important for a practice. So what I've done with this class is I've broke it down into chapters. And the first chapter is really important to understand the duties and the responsibilities of the front desk. How do you break it down to where the front line is your check-in and your check-out, but making sure that your back office, such as answering the phone, taking the new patient, routing the new patient, understanding verification, all of that is so important. And being able to have those duties assigned and have each one of those duties owned is really, really important. So the first thing I do is I break down the front desk and we talk about what is the responsibility of the front desk and how do we make sure that all of that, and I also teach how to schedule a new patient. Where's the customer service? That, by the way, is the first impression of the office. Many people think it's when they walk through the door. It's not. It's on the phone. So we have to have that high tone and that high energy, but we have to be able to schedule that patient within 24 hours so they walk through the door. So the first chapter is all about the responsibility and how we can get those new patients scheduled. And then I go into what I think is probably the most important, one of the two most important, which is how do you properly schedule? And proactively pre-scheduling is key. It's key to the office volume, it's key to the office success, but it's also key for the patient, because the patient's going to have a commitment and a routine. And what I teach people is not to ask, when do you want to come in, but guide and lead them to what you have available, to take control of your practice for the benefit of the patient so they can get the care they deserve in and out in a timely manner, but also allow that practice. And I think we know, times are getting a little tougher for the practice. So we have to take control of these things so that we can get that patient in and provide that care. So I go through pre-scheduling and I teach you how to schedule treatment plan, restorative care, maintenance management. No matter what type of patient it is, or what type of practice you have, I will show you how to proactively pre-schedule so that your volume is at the highest it can be and your patient is obviously getting what's best for them. That's the second thing. The third thing is recall and reschedule. And how important is it to keep that patient on track? We know that it's hard to bring that new patient in. So we're going to bring that new patient in. We're going to educate them. We're going to schedule them. How sad is it then to allow them to miss? And then we ask, when do you want to reschedule? I have an entire 7-step process on how to properly reschedule to make sure that we're retaining the patient. Because if we don't retain the patient, they don't get the outcome. They don't get the care they're there for, and the practice certainly doesn't win. So I spend a lot of time on scheduling and rescheduling, and that's what most of my clients love, because when I teach the system, it's very structured. Scripting is in, but it's also very patient-friendly. I don't believe that a process should ever be about the practice. I think it should be about the patient. If it's about the patient, the practice wins. So when you take those 2 chapters of proper scheduling and rescheduling, it's amazing the outcome that a practice will see. I don't make a lot of guarantees, but I will guarantee you, if you properly pre-schedule and you properly reschedule, your volume will go up. With that said, your patients are also going to be happier. So I take those 3 chapters and I put those together, and then I add statistics, because statistics are important. And a front desk needs to own their pre-schedule. They need to own their reschedule, the over-the-counter collections, but they also are the best person to be able to keep the basic statistics on volume. And I show them and go through, here's how you do it, here's why you do it. So when they go back to their office, they can implement the next day. That's my theory. Learn from me today, implement tomorrow. My classes are fun, they're high energy, they're interactive, but more importantly, can you take what I'm teaching you today and implement tomorrow? And that's my theory. And when a doctor works with me or sends his staff to me, I want him to know that when they come back, they're going to be able to implement what, in fact, I have taught them to be able to help that practice. So we're looking at staffing, responsibility, scheduling, rescheduling, statistics, all the basic business systems that allow that front desk to run. And Dr. Fab, I know you agree with me, that's the nerve root of the practice.
Yeah.
And that's where everything starts and stops. But then I have one last chapter that I teach, customer service. Because I think that customer service culture is crucial. Having all the systems and having all that without that customer service culture. So we go over customer service and how important it is, and phone etiquette, and how to handle an upset patient, and how to create that environment that's different. And when you take all those chapters and put them together, it's a very, very empowering class. I haven't had a CA come that doesn't love it. But more importantly, I want them to go back and have a more efficient, more effective, and more profitable practice. So I've been teaching this class for years. I actually teach this in a boot camp format. I love teaching it, and it was great to do it at the FCA in Orlando. And I really want more people from the FCA to join in and be able to have the fun with me, but learn from me and be able to implement and grow their practices.
Well, one of the things that I can tell you is the fact that I get so inspired when I listen to you. And, I sat in your class myself a few times, and I just really enjoy the way that you teach, because there's such a level of engagement. But one of the things that I want you to recognize is the fact that in viewing many of the mindsets of chiropractors, we have many chiropractors for the last 20 years that are graduating that have never owned a business, that have never run a business. So many of them have never really been trained in many of the things that you're talking about.
Correct.
More patients in somebody's office. But then the interesting thing is that when we then hire a CA to support us, many of them are not properly training them. Therefore, we teach them sometimes things that are not good behaviors. A lot of times we think that we ignore the behavior and we just say, well, they should figure it out on their own. And what I learned is that these procedures, these systems have been in place for a long time.
Yeah.
And you can always see those common denominators in most successful practices that you see. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely. And if I'm looking at those common denominators, the first one is systems. And a system is standard. And standards have to stay in. I do think that doctors and owners not have to do the standards, but they should know the standards.
Yeah.
They should understand what's going on within their practice. From that, communication. Communication is key. Communication among staff. Same communication to patients. Communication to the patient, in the proper way, and accountability. You put those 3 things together, and now we can take what I'm teaching and actually apply it. So the standard of systems and the proper communication, I'm really big on scripting. I want everybody to use their own personality, because we all have different personalities, but the message is important. So having an owner and a doctor, and I love it when they come and be part of my class, and I will tell you, the thing that I really liked in Orlando is as the day went on and the class went on, I saw more and more doctors and owners coming in because their staff was going and getting them and bringing them back. But what we were actually doing was learning standards, systems, effective communication, the importance of accountability, which then rolls into statistics. So you can no longer, may I say, doctors, bury your head in the sand. We have to make sure that we hire the right people, we train the right people, we appreciate those people, because something I don't like is turnover in practices.
Yes.
And I want to have that CA, you as a CA should be empowered. You're important. Yeah. And I want the doctor to realize what value the CA has. And when the two come together and I can work with both of them, we really do get an amazing outcome.
And you do that beautiful. So let me ask you this question, Lori, because I really want this webinar to be something high value, high content. And now we've learned pretty much the infrastructure of what it is that we should be thinking as we set up not only our offices, but also the training within our CAs. But what are 3 things that if I was to implement something on Monday morning, give me 3 golden nuggets, something that you can say, Fab, these are things that if you just try it, if you do them consistently, you will see an instant improvement, not only as a CA, but also as a DC that's implementing some of these procedures in our practice. What would that be?
Number 1 would be think proactively and speak proactively, not reactively. Everybody wants to react on what the patient wants. I agree, but you have to be proactive on what they need. So the way that you communicate and being in control and guiding and leading them to what's best for them. A patient is going to comply based on value and benefit. So proactively guide and lead, show them about value and benefit. I think you're going to see the patient's going to follow your lead and everybody's going to win. Number 2 is making sure that you have your systems in. Do you have your processes? Do you have your job descriptions? Do you have your objectives? If you don't have those, we have to start there. So we have to have the mindset and the communication of being proactive. We have to believe in what we're doing to show value and benefit. But then we have to have processes, systems, job descriptions, objectives, and outcomes. They have to start with that. And then the next thing I would say is making sure that you really have a strong, positive team. And the key word there is positive. It's a team. And everybody works together. That positive attitude of loving what you do. So if we have the strong team, we have the systems, and we communicate from a proactive, in-control perspective, you're going to win. When you do that, I think we all want to grow our practices, correct? That type of an environment creates a mindset of growth and expansion. So I guess I'm going to kind of put a 4th one in there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because the 4th one is, if we can do those 3, then we're going to have that mindset of growth and expansion. I firmly believe that a practice in today's market can and should grow from the inside out. It should grow from referrals. It should grow from reactivation. It should grow from the great work you're doing. If you're not guiding and leading, if you don't have your systems in place and you don't have the right team, it's going to be hard to do that. So those are the 3 things that I would like every practice to assess. Are we thinking that way? Are we talking that way? Are we in control? Do we have those systems? Do we have the protocols? And do we have a team that's a positive team? And I'd love to help every office out there build those. Because if we build those, then we get the outcome of the mindset of growth and expansion.
So with all the plus 20 years of experience that you've had, for the CAs that are listening, what would be something that you feel they need to remind themselves on a constant basis, even when the doctor doesn't remind them? Because sometimes, as you know, we have to be self-motivated, self-started. And a lot of times we wait for somebody else to tell us, you're doing a great job, or I want you to do this. We need to start thinking for ourselves and doing what we feel is right for that patient. And I often tell the CAs, as long as you make decisions as to what's right for the patients, you usually will make the right decision for the practice and that doctor. So what would you say to the CAs that are listening right now, why they should consider, what they should consider with themselves in order to be able to thrive as a chiropractic assistant, in order to be able to feel fulfilled every single day, and most importantly, in order to be able to feel value? Because that's one of the things that we hear from them. They're not feeling as valuable as they would like to. So what would be one thing that you would tell me as a CA to consider?
Well, I tell every CA that you are important. And if we're looking at the front desk CA, they're not a receptionist. They are a coordinator that has a tremendous amount of impact on that patient and on the practice. So first, look at yourself and realize the value that you bring to that practice, but also want to learn and want to grow and continue, to develop yourself, because there's so much that you can bring to the practice and do for the practice. And when you learn how to communicate proactively and you're comfortable guiding and leading the patient, the outcome you're going to see in the patient is great. But if I could turn it on the other side, and I love for you to keep statistics, because you know what they do? They empower you. And when you take a look at a stat and you say, look, when I first came, we weren't rescheduling, but now we're rescheduling 80%. Nobody can make you feel better than when you do that for yourself and you see that. So that CA is going to make or break a practice. And that CA needs to make sure they value themselves, they know the importance they have, and more importantly, they want to continue to grow, and they want to be able to look at an outcome. And you should be appreciated, and one should tell you you're doing a great job, but we know it doesn't always happen. But I will show you a way that you can actually look at those results and pat yourself on the back and know that you're doing a great job, because you are important as a CA, and the practice will never be what it can be without a well-trained CA following my systems, proactively guiding and leading and doing all the things we've been talking about.
So, Lori, thinking about the same type of question, what would you tell a DC out there that feels frustrated with what's going on with healthcare, that feels a lack of clarity at the type of practice and the style of practice that they've selected for themselves, especially when it comes to their business models? Or a chiropractor that perhaps has never been trained properly how to train their CA, so to see the value of how important these procedures are in your practice. Because in reality, it's not necessarily about just CA training or DC training.
Right.
This is a practice that is a collaborative effort. That means that you work together for the benefit of that patient. And when you do that, the patients will ensure that you'll always have plenty of patients to take care of. So as a chiropractor, now you're speaking to me as a chiropractor, what do you think that I need to work on, and think to myself, based on your 20 plus years of experience in working with some of the biggest practices in the world, what would you say to me to be thinking about and hopefully to start addressing with myself as a chiropractor?
You started out by saying that the industry is changing and some people are getting a little down, and things are constantly changing and evolving. But what you have to look at is you're running a business. And what I actually want to help you all do is put a business model within your practice. You'll figure out what you can do clinically, because it may change again in 2 years, and reimbursement, may change again tomorrow, but you're still running a business. You're running a business and you're helping people, and you're in a healing industry. So all I can promise you is if you run it like a business and you continue to keep your processes, your systems, your standards in, as the industry changes, so will you, but you can never go away. And Dr. Fab, the most important thing for any business to know, including you as a doctor and you as a businessman, is, do I have my business running the way it's supposed to? With my systems, with my communication? Am I accountable to myself? Is my staff accountable? Am I statistically tracking it? Do I have that powerful team? And am I always growing? I'll repeat those 6 steps over and over. But I tell every doctor out there, allow me to come in and show you how to put a business model in that's going to make you successful. It's going to allow you to continue. And I know times are a little rough right now. I know things are changing. You got to keep your head up. You got to continue to run the business. And when you take your head away from it and you start to worry about what tomorrow's bringing and what this change is going to do, what it's doing is taking this system out, and then this one drops, and then we forget to do this, and then suddenly we don't have what we used to have from the industry perspective, and now we don't have our business model. You have to keep the business model in. Be positive. There's still a lot of people out there that need help. You got to come together as a collaborative team. And I do teach clinical systems as well. I'm talking today because I'm really excited to train these CAs. But as a clinician, you got to look at your systems too. Is your communication strong, and do you have everything? And if you have an associate, are you training that associate? So it's everybody coming together and following my philosophy of the 6 steps and making sure that everything's in place.
One of the things that I've often said is when we go into chiropractic school, Lori, we are so on fire. We want to change the world. I mean, I read every application for almost 13 and a half years that came into Parker and saw the amazing power of individuals wanting to become chiropractors. And then unfortunately, as we go through the school experience and we are tested so much and physically drained, and emotionally sometimes we feel like we're getting into debt and we get into that mindset of survival rather than prosperity, it has an impact on us. What would you say in closing remarks if somebody's just starting their practice? Why is it so important for them to be able to understand that implementing these systems, the earlier the better? Because I find that a lot of people wait and they say, well, I can't afford a CA, or I can't afford to train myself or to train my CA, or I can't afford some kind of online service or program that will allow me to train myself properly, even if I don't attend a physical event. I mean, what would you say to me as I'm starting a practice based on your experience?
The simplest answer is you can't afford not to. You can't do this by yourself. And you say you have that fire and you want to treat and help people. Well, if you don't have the right person trained to be able to answer that phone and guide that person in, or that person be able out there to meet the public. So you can't do this as a one-man band. And, I work with a lot of offices that are adding, new services and growing in different areas. And I say, that's great, but let's get this dialed in first. Let's get your business model dialed in. Let's get your systems dialed in so you can do all these other things. So if you're a practice that's advancing forward and you're looking at new things and new profit centers, now's the time to reevaluate your business. If you're just starting, you can't afford to do it without it. Let's get it in now so that you can really start to flourish and see the benefits.
Well, for all of you that are listening, I hope you're just as inspired as I am. Lori and I are going to be in Naples, November 19th through the 22nd. This is the Florida Chiropractic Association Winter Convention and Expo, and we can't wait to see you. Listen, I'm going to share with you something right now, and that is you can't afford to be there. I'm going to repeat what Lori just said. You cannot afford not to be there. You need to be there and make the investment. Many times, Lori, people and chiropractors will tell me, oh, Fab, I just don't have the money. And it's because they're looking at this as an expense rather than as an investment. I used to be a seminar junkie. I used to go to seminars 3 weekends a month minimum because I wanted to learn. And I knew that every time I put my money into investing in myself with knowledge, with procedures, with the right tools that I can grow myself and my practice, it was always the greatest investment that I ever made. I often said that we are our greatest investment. But for you that are chiropractors out there, please consider bringing your chiropractic assistants, all of you, to Naples, Florida, because you don't want to wait another minute to be trained by Lori and the team of speakers that are going to be there supporting you and supporting your CAs. And for those of you that are still thinking that, you can't afford this, please reconsider that, because we value you enough to say we care for you and we want you to succeed. Look, it doesn't matter where you are in practice. You may just begin in your practice or barely surviving, or maybe even struggling to the degree that you may think, I don't know if I can go on any longer. The good news is that there is hope. If you would have been there at the National and you would have experienced what people felt after this class that Lori taught, they were so empowered. They were on fire. And yes, I saw the line, Lori, when I was passing by your booth, of all the lines of CAs bringing their chiropractors to meet you because they were empowered. They were thankful. And the FCA is bringing that to you because they care about you. This is a benefit of being a member or being an attendee of any of their events, because they care for you. They want you to succeed. They understand that there are certain tools or skills that all of us are missing. Now, I want you to let you know that I have certain strengths in my life. I know what they are, but I also can recognize what are the areas that I need to be trained on, what are the areas that I need to improve upon. And when it comes to training your CAs, I can tell you this lady is the best. No one does it better than her, and you cannot afford to miss her in Naples, November 19th through the 22nd. We're going to be there. We can't wait to see you. And please, just click and go to the website and register for this event, because it will be life-changing. And think about not just yourself. Think about all those patients in your community that will benefit because of the training that you're giving yourself and your CAs through having participated in Lori's class. Lori, I can't wait to see you in Naples. For all of you that came to the webinar, thank you so much for joining us. And I can't wait to experience another great FCA convention together. All right, I'll see you soon. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. See you there.
Bye-bye.